5 years ago, after being bullied at school, our proto has stopped leaving the house. Locking himself in his room, he looks at his cell phone. A light pulls him inside. In a completely clear place, a woman dressed like the ancient Greek beauties tells him that after a careful selection, he was chosen to reincarnate. Our proto soon realizes that he ended up emptying himself from staying inside that room for so long, and the supposed goddess starts to explain to him about this new world. She says he will leave him with abundant power and good abilities, also that he takes advantage of this second chance. He asks to be reincarnated. He then, after arriving in this world, realizes that he will have to start in childhood. He was reincarnated into a baby with a calf cut, and apparently, his father is the king of this place. He is all proud of his son. For him carry the royal insignia on your breast, and for being descended from him. Our proto noticing that he is the son of the king, then, his father puts a crystal ball on the baby. He wants to make a magic review on it. A whirlpool of power appears. The ball begins to glow. He hopes that past from 40, even 50 would be good, but it turns out that when the ball goes out, only the number 02 appears. He has only 2 points of magic in his body. The princess begins to worry that people will start talking if they find out that they have given birth to this baby. King tells them to abandon the child in the forest, and in heaven, the goddess who reincarnated our proto is desperate. She gave him appealing skills, but no one ended up noticing. The mana devices of that time can only capture 2 digits, but she gave him the amount of 1002 mana, making him look like an incapable one. Besides, she forgot to give him an element, and now he will be thrown away because of her. And in the forest, our proto is in a terrible situation. He is in a basket, like a baby and curled up. He remembers his barrier magic and decides to try to use it. He doesn't know how to form it, so while thinking about a format for it, he starts to imagine geometric shapes, and a neon square is born from them. Very beautiful, by the way. He realizes he can tinker with its shape and change its size. He feels he can do anything with this square. He turns the square into a bird and then comes up with the idea to use it on himself. He then brings the square close to him and covers the basket with it, managing to rise in the air through the square. He discovers that the magic of barriers is much more useful than he imagined. A huge wolf appears behind him and immediately tries to bite him. But our proto quickly invokes a barrier magic around him, making it as hard as possible and stopping the wolf's teeth. He notices the resistance of the barrier and decides to create other smaller ones. Thinking of attacking the work, they don't even tickle the wolf, and seeing that the animal is coming at him again, he starts looking for something bigger, so he uses his barriers to raise trees that were around him. Aiming them at the wolf and throwing them at him, he hits him, but the wolf gets up again without major problems. Our proto is scared that even that was not enough to stop him, defeat him, and as a last measure, he takes a huge piece of earth, raising it over the wolf's head. He then realizes when he was about to crush her that the wolf who was talking about surrendering. A little later, the wolf begins to explain that he thought about eating him to replenish his mana, but he did not. Imagine he would be so strong. Our proto thinks about talking to her, but it turns out that he still can't. He starts to think about how to use his barrier to talk, so they have the idea of creating a barrier that turns thoughts into sound, and he creates it, putting it inside his body and starting to talk. The wolf is impressed with it. He starts to explain to her. He says his name, Haruto, abandoning the ugly name that the king gave him, and says that he was abandoned by his parents for being born with very little magic. But the wolf interrupts him, asking how that would be possible, since the mana that baby emanated was far above those that humans could have. She recognizes how strong he is and says that she admits her defeat, lying on her back and telling him to finish her off at once. Haruto says that would be too much and just tells her not to attack him again, and seeing his generosity, the femur is amazed, swearing loyalty to him for all eternity in his name. Haruto falls out of levitation. Flay starts to ask what happened. He is hungry. Haruto needs milk, and seeing the situation, Flay starts to transform, saying that for his master he would do anything, and in that, she turns into a human woman, still keeping her ears and tail. Haruto gets all shy seeing all that, and she starts to barrier magic to create an outfit for her. But he creates a latex leotard, leaving her even more sus, and seeing that the problem of hunger still persists, she begins to take off her clothes. She says that human women only give milk after SNU, and starts asking Haruto to deposit his seeds in her, and he finally comes to the conclusion that Flame might be a little dense, and, after explaining it to her, she realizes her mistake and apologizes to him, and suddenly they hear someone approaching. Flay is in battle mode, but Haruto tells her to listen to what they have to say. It turns out that it was a man sent to save Haruto. He came with breast milk to welcome him. A relative, knowing the circumstances, sent him, and he starts to argue with Flay, thinking that this was a plan he came up with, knowing that she doesn't give milk. But in the end, Flay agrees to go with him and Haruto so that he can take care of him. While pretending to serve the man, they make a scene in the forest with the baby's basket, spilling blood and denting it, and many years later, in the morning, Haruto, now as a young man, greets his adoptive father, mother, and sister. He made a clone of himself, but he doesn't talk or walk independently, so he needs to finish it, and while thinking about it, his father appears. Haruto already felt that this day would come, but he thought it would take longer. It turns out that his father wants to teach him the art of the sword. As Haruto's magic level is low, he wants to give him the chance to be someone. He asks if Haruto has any other ideas. He says Haruto needs to test his aptitude before he gives up, imbuing himself with barrier magic, just to not feel the pain, and then he takes off in a dash to hit his father, but at an impressive speed, scaring him and making him have to seriously dodge. Haruto goes straight and ends up breaking his sword on the ground. Haruto made a huge hole in the ground while hitting him, and at night, his father, who is tired, starts talking to Haruto's mother. He is saying that maybe Haruto is a demon that has returned. He says that some time ago, someone from the palace had an affair with it. Could be one of those cases. He says that the real mark gives unknown powers to its bearer, and this could be a hypothesis, saying that this could be the answer to why the demon Flay shows so much respect for him. His mother, in turn, defends Haruto, stating that he is a normal child. We see Haru relaxing in his room when there is suddenly a commotion outside. He uses his barriers to see what's going on, and we see a bunch of injured soldiers. Haru asks his father about what happened, and his father mentions their lands have been getting attacked by thieves. They found the base of the thieves, but they ended up getting ambushed. His father thinks it's a harsh sight for him to witness, so he tells Haru to go back inside. Flea calls them useless for getting beaten by some thieves, but Haru gets pissed off, telling her to shut her mouth. As Haru walks past, he uses his barriers on the wounded, and he is able to instantly heal them all. The men can't believe it, and Haru's father wonders what's going on. At night, Haru wakes up, and he sees Flea has been waiting for him. She doesn't dare to talk, and Haru realizes she is still following his speak again. They head outside, and Haru uses his barriers to look for the thieves that attacked his father. He is quickly able to find them, and plans to wipe them out as he uses his barrier to fly to their location. But at that moment, we see Charlotte watching them as they leave. We see the thieves celebrating their victory, while their boss discusses their plans to return to their homeland. Haru suddenly appears, and he instantly freezes them with his barriers. One of the men tries to talk back, but Haru instantly blows him away. The boss ends up confessing everything, revealing that they are actually soldiers from the neighboring empire. Their goal was to cause chaos in the kingdom, and they even reveal they had someone helping them on the inside. Haru wonders if there is someone after his father's life, but the men don't know anything else. The men ask to be spared, but Haru tells them they messed up by attacking his father, so Flea ends up burning the entire base, and he ends up sending an anonymous letter to his father about what he learned. His father is surprised to learn that the Empire is involved, and Charlotte wonders who took out the bad guys, and he can tell that it must have been Flea's doing. Charlotte suddenly gets up, and explains there is somewhere she needs to go. As she leaves the office, she thinks about what she saw the previous night. She asks Flea if there are two Harus, but Flea is confused about what she is talking about. She reveals she saw them leaving, but she knows Haru shouldn't have enough mana to fly, so she checked in his room, and she ended up finding his clone sleeping in his bed. She notes that it didn't have his usual scary aura, so she wonders what it all means. Flea is impressed to hear that Charlotte can sense her brother's strength, and she explains just how powerful he really is, but she tells her too much about it. Flea ends up reporting her encounter to Haru, and he can't believe she already found out about his clone. He decides to set up extra surveillance on her, so he can keep tabs on what she is up to. Over the next few days, we see Charlotte following him around. No matter where he goes, Charlotte watches him, even when he's in the bath. And when he tries to confront her, she just runs away. After a week, we learn that his mother and Charlotte are going on a trip to the annual festival. Haru tells them they should take Flea along, but his mother mentions that Flea hasn't been around, and Haru remembers how he told Flea to intimidate the monsters in the forest so they don't attack any towns. Later on, Haru's alarm goes off, and he realizes it's the surveillance he put on Charlotte. We see that their carriage was attacked by Imperial soldiers, and Charlotte is carried away by her mother Natalia. The men chase after them, casting their magic, but Natalia manages to block it, but she gets hit in the leg. Charlotte suddenly hears a voice, and she directs her mother to run. Natalia wonders who's giving the directions, but they end up at a cliff. Charlotte tells her to jump, and they manage to make it down by using magic. They end up finding a cave, but Natalia thinks it's too bright to be able to hide. Natalia decides to go out to find the person who was giving them directions, saying they must be a hero of justice. She tells Charlotte to stay quiet, and she quickly heads off. As she leaves the cave, the entrance is hidden by some illusion magic, but at that moment, the soldiers catch up to her. Natalia thinks she can't let herself get captured, so she prepares to take her own life. However, her blade suddenly shatters, as Haru arrives just in time. He gets pissed off at the situation, and he instantly blows all of the soldiers away. He calls out for Charlotte, telling her to take care of her mother, but she is terrified feeling his aura. She realizes it must be her brother, so she forces herself to see him. Haru is surprised to hear her calling his name, and she asks if he is a hero of justice. He is confused by the question, but he decides to play along. Charlotte gets excited, thinking he uses his powers to defeat bad guys, and Haru just agrees. She apologizes for not realizing his true identity, but Haru tells her she needs to keep it a secret. At night, Haru's father receives a report about what happened, and he wonders about the mysterious person that has been helping them. He asks Haru if he has any ideas, but he just says that the person should stay on their side as long as they behave. Charlotte and Natalia return, and Charlotte instantly hugs Haru. She tells him how much she missed him, and their mother wonders when they became so close. Charlotte refuses to explain, but she just says that she loves him now. Haru is happy about this, but FLE seems to get jealous of their new relationship. After that, Charlotte would barge into his room every day, asking to play, and he now has trouble dealing with her because she likes him too much. She wonders what he is doing, and he tells her he is keeping watch with his surveillance magic. She is impressed he can use ancient magic, calling him amazing, and Haru says it's hard to learn since it's a lost magic. But Charlotte mentions that she has seen records about it, and she ends up taking him to their castle archive. Haru is surprised to learn they had such a huge library, and Charlotte helps him grab some of the books. Haru learns that his barrier magic is considered ancient magic, and he is surprised Charlotte has been reading these books. He thinks they would be too difficult for her, but she says that their father would normally read it to her. She tells him to do the same, sitting on his lap, and Haru does his part as her big brother. They read that there are some gods that can travel between worlds, and Haru thinks it sounds like a story from an anime. He wishes he could watch anime in this world, and Charlotte wonders what he is talking about. He thinks she wouldn't understand, but she insists on trying her best to listen. He explains it is drawings that can move, and he gets excited talking about it. Charlotte seems shocked, and he thinks she must think he's weird, but she wishes that she could also experience it, and she's happy that he seems so passionate about it. So Haru decides to find a way for them to watch anime. After 2 weeks, Haru manages to get access to the internet from Japan, and he finds that his old Netflix account still works. He creates a kid's account for Charlotte, and he lets her choose what she wants to watch. She picks a show about a magical girl, and she is amazed that the drawings can really move. She finds it amazing, but she isn't able to understand Japanese. Haru thinks it would be hard for her to learn a language, but thinks she should be able to manage since she's still young. He starts teaching her the alphabet, and he is shocked she seems to have learned it after only 2 hours. After another 2 weeks, Charlotte barges in, wanting to watch the latest episode of her favorite show. We see zombies in a city, but the heroes of justice fight them off. As she watches the show, it seems she has mastered Japanese by just watching anime, and Haru wonders if she's a genius. He's glad she's having fun, but he thinks he needs to be a good example for her. She finishes watching her episode, wanting to move on to the next one, but Haru stops her, saying she is only allowed to watch for 3 hours a day. Charlotte is devastated, wondering why he would do this to her, but he claims it's for her own good. They have dinner together, and Charlotte seems to be nodding off. Their father wonders what Charlotte has been doing in his room, and Charlotte says they've been busy researching ancient magic, and their mother is happy to hear they're working together. After dinner, Charlotte follows him around, but he tells her she can't watch any more anime for this, so she should just take a bath and go to sleep. We see Haru taking a bath, and Charlotte ends up joining him. She thinks she should just go to sleep since she can't watch anime, and Haru thinks she is starting to sound like an otaku. She notices the crest on his chest, and she calls it his emblem, saying it's his proof he's an ally of justice. He thinks she has been watching too much anime, but he tells her to keep it a secret, saying that allies of justice must hide their identity. They say goodnight, and Haru goes to bed, but Charlotte ends up sleeping with him, and we see their mother watching them, happy that they are getting along so well, but Haru just wants his own space. The next day, their father leaves to subdue some thieves, and Charlotte worries for his safety. She gets depressed, but Haru tells her not to be worried, saying their father will be fine. Charlotte tells him he should use his powers to fight the bad guys, begging him to go, and Haru has no choice but to agree. She tells him he needs to transform, just like in the anime, so Haru ends up putting on a disguise. Haru gets embarrassed, but Charlotte thinks he is so cool. She wants to go with him, but he says it's too dangerous, making her depressed. However, he gives her a way to watch his heroic deeds, and he quickly heads off. He looks around for the thieves, finding them in a cave, and he uses his barrier magic to seal them in. This would usually be enough, but he thinks he should put on a show since his sister is watching. He arrives at their location, and the thieves wonder who he is. He calls himself an ally of justice, but the men try to rush at him. He is able to easily beat them all up, but he makes sure to go easy since Charlotte is watching. At that moment, his father arrives, wondering who he is. He makes up a random name, and his father wonders if he is the mysterious person who has been helping them out. He wonders what his goal is, and Haru just explains that he's carrying out justice. He gets embarrassed with himself, so he quickly runs away.